Okay, guys. So Michael just set the tone over here. He said it's a completely different and will change everything. I don't, Big So, I don't think so much. It's the biggest visual overhaul we've had since Apple introduced brush metal around about, I don't know, Panther 10.4, 10.5, something like that. Many of the changes are under the hood, and we'll talk about some of these in a moment, but just in terms of what we can show, the biggest change is to the look and feel of the environment that you've been used to working in. Now, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because so much of what we do on computers is muscle memory. And if you're having to spend a lot of time trying to work out where's this new thing, you immediately lose productivity. And that's, a bit of a problem. But Apple tend to have no problem with changing things so dramatically because they know that once you get used to it, you will probably find it better to use, easier to use, and so on. They've done that with Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. They did it with Final Cut. They did it with iMovie. They completely rewrote things. So they're not the type of company that needs to pull behind them 20,000 years of history. They have no problem changing these things. And I think the choice you have to make is whether you're prepared to put the time to learn the new things in and then ultimately be a little bit more productive, or not. I mean, like many of these things, change management is the biggest issue, not so much the new things themselves. So let me share my screen and we'll get going. Okay, so the first thing is the look and feel. Let's just make a new Finder window. And there we go. The first thing that you notice is that your title bar doesn't stretch across the entire window anymore. It stops over here, but you can still pick up your window and move it around by dragging from the sidebar. But visually, it's much more modern. It's a little bit cleaner than it was before, and it's just a really nice refresh of the system. Your icons are a little bit more muted, I think. If I resize my windows, you can see that my view menu over here becomes a pop-up, whereas if I pull it all the way across, it automatically opens itself up to show me my icon view, my list view, my column view, and my gallery view, which is very similar to what we've had from, Catalina onwards. You'll notice as well that the title, the name of the folder that I'm in, the applications, or if I go to my home folder, doesn't necessarily show the icon of the folder and isn't in the middle of the window the way it used to be. So for some people who used to being able to copy folders by just clicking and dragging the folder, the little proxy folder over here, it appears to have disappeared. But if you hover over it or click, you can then drag, copy, and move this the way you've been used to, if this is something that you used to do. If not, then it doesn't matter at all. Applications, as far as the Mac goes, Mac or Apple applications have been modified. So if I show, for example, this file over here, if you're used to using Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, you'll see that the icons reflect the same kind of style ethic that you've got in your Finder windows. You don't have the very colorful icons that you had before. You've got this slightly more muted, but that lets your content pop out a little bit more. At least I think that's the idea. Your dock looks very much like your iPhone dock, and it makes quite a lot of sense in some respect because there are a hell of a lot more iPad users than there are Mac users. And it becomes very easy for a Mac user, for an iPad user to come to the Mac and go, oh yeah, that's my dock. Oh, I recognize that icon, that's Mail. Oh, I recognize that icon, that's Safari. In fact, there was a point in time when Microsoft introduced Windows 8 that it was easier for a Windows using iPad user to go to a new version of the macOS than it was for them to go to the Windows OS, because the change between Windows 8 and Windows 7 was so dramatic that they had to literally relearn how to use their computer. So from that perspective, it's a fairly good thing. Let's have a look at Launchpad. If I click on Launchpad, I don't know how many of you use it. A lot of people who are new to the Mac use Launchpad all the time. Us old school people rarely use it, but if you're new, it's a very convenient place to find your applications. It looks just like an iPad home screen. If I want to combine things into folders, I just drag them on top of each other. I can name them. and just click, makes it easy for me to find them. I can type a name for something. So if I type Word, for example, there's Microsoft Word. So it becomes very, very easy for people who are moving across from our iOS platform to the Mac. Just a continuity of experience. They don't have to learn a new tool. If you want to delete an app from your Mac, just press and hold on it, and you get your little X's for the programs that are third party, that are not installed with the operating system. Click on it, it deletes it from your Mac. Hit escape and it stops. So very, very similar to the experience that an iPad user would have. If you, let's just escape out of that. If you can see the menu bar up at the top, it's translucent, and it changes based on the background. So if I, for example, go to my system preferences, let's just clean this up and close that, and go to my desktop and screensaver, there are a lot of really nice new backgrounds. So for example, if I take this guy, you'll see my text is still white over there, but if I take something like the Big Sur Mountains, my text turns black. So the menu bar changes depending on the background to make it more or less visible. Up at the top, we've got a bunch of new desktop pictures. These are dynamic pictures. So if I click on this Big Sur one, as you can see down there, these little striations, it will change depending on the time of day. So when we get to nighttime, you'll have a night view of this picture. So with the passing of the day, just like we had with Catalina, but we've got a bunch of new pictures that we can use as our dynamic desktops. There's some really pretty illustrations. And once again, these are dynamics. So as we get further onto the day, we'll get to evening, to night, and this will change, as well as these, as well as these, as well as these. We also have these light and dark desktops. So if you're turning on dark mode, there will be a light and dark version. So a lot of nice little touches over here that we can use with our desktop. So for the rest of the session, I'm going to use this desktop, because I think this is really quite pretty. So that's really an overview of the interface. Let's have a look at some of the more important changes. If you have a look at the menu bar, I typically have so many little menu bar icons. It typically extends right to there, to the extent that I actually had to get a third-party app called Bartender, which let me have multiple rows of menu bar items. It was just insane. So because there are so many tools out there that you might want to have, like your wireless, like your Bluetooth, like your AirPlay, Apple have kind of redesigned the menu bar and what they call menulets, so that it becomes a little bit more manageable. And what they've done is they've introduced Control Center. So if I click on Control Center, you can see many of the individual icons that appeared as widgets up at the top here. Sorry, not widgets, I'm using the wrong word. I think menulet is the real word, but let's just call them menu bar icons for the moment. You can access these directly. So, for example, there are additional controls. So over here, if I'm on my display, I can adjust the color of my display. I can turn dark mode on. So let's just open up a new window so we can see what it looks like. I can turn dark mode on. And you can see dark mode changes. My windows become black. It becomes, if you like this, then you can turn that on. You can also have it turn on automatically at a certain time of day. We've got night shift, which changes the color to make it a little bit less blue at night, so you don't get overstimulated and it's easier to sleep. True tone, you can turn on and off. So each one of these, it has many levels deep. So if I go to sound, for example, and click on sound, it opens up, and here are all the audio output devices. So at the moment, my audio is going into the Zoom, but I could switch to my AirPods. I could switch to my HomePod in my office. I could go back to my MacBook speakers, and I can adjust the volume just by dragging and I can go straight to my sound preferences. So in a nutshell, they've combined a lot of items that might have appeared over here and have brought them all into a more centralized area. Now we can customize this, and there's a couple of ways of doing this. The first thing is we can go to our system preferences. And if I go to dock and menu bar, you can see this has changed dramatically. Whereas before we just had the dock, we now have a whole bunch of control center settings. And I'm just going to review a few of them. But the one thing that has changed, and I don't recall whether it was on Catalina or not, is before we go into the control center, under dock and menu bar, you can automatically now hide and show the menu bar. So in the same way as when you're in full screen view and you've got multiple spaces, I don't know, those of you who came to our mission control workshop, you'll know all about spaces and how the menu bar hides when you're in full screen. Now I can have the menu bar hide irrespective of whether I'm in full screen or not. So the menu bar is hidden over here. And if I want to see it, I just move my cursor to the top and the menu bar will come down. So if I really want to maximize the screen real estate on my computer and not lose the 40-odd pixels that take up the menu bar, I can hide that. Me, I'm old school. I want to see my menu bar. So let's have a look at how we customize the control center. It's broken up into three areas. We've got elements that appear in the control center. So if I look at Wi-Fi, you can see it's a mimic of my control center over here. It shows me which widget it's in and which one is available. I can show it in the menu bar. So just in a nutshell, I've got items that will appear in the control center, but we can show in the menu bar. We've got stuff that appears in the menu bar only, and some which can appear in both. So if I want this to appear in my menu bar and I don't want to have to drill down to Wi-Fi, I click show in menu bar, and there's my Wi-Fi settings. Click there, and I can hide it. Now, there is another way to get things into the menu bar. If you don't want to come to the system preferences, I can just go here, click and drag this, and I can pop this up in the menu bar wherever I want it to be, and I can add it there. And you can see over here, this is now checked to show that it's in the menu bar. I want to remove it, bang, it's gone. So all of these elements over here, I can control and adjust. I can't rearrange them. That's pretty much fixed, but I can show them in the menu bar over here. Now, if we look at other modules, if we click over here, we can add or remove items to the bottom. So for example, if I click on battery, I can add this to my control center and I can show it in the menu bar. So at the moment you can see it's in the menu bar. I can switch it off there, but I've added it to my control center. And if you look at battery over here, I can click it and it shows me how much my battery power is, what's using significant energy, just as I used to be able to do from my menu bar previously. So let's put it back in the menu bar, and you can also show your percentages. You can turn on accessibility shortcuts. You can turn on fast user switching. And this is another element that always was in the menu bar. If you had multiple users and you wanted to switch between users on your computer, if you had multiple accounts, it's not in my menu bar now because I don't switch that frequently. But if I click on my control center and click on this icon here, it opens up all the accounts that I have on this machine. So I can switch to the training account, or I can go straight to the login window and just close my screen up. Finally, you've got your elements which are menu bar only. So I've got the clock and I have all the controls. I've got Spotlight, I've got Siri and Time Machine. So these guys only appear in the menu bar. They don't show in the control center at all, because usually these guys are things that you want to have in the menu bar. It may change over time, but this is what we've got for now. One other control that you've got, let's have a look here, screen mirroring, for example, is I've got show in the menu bar, but only when it's active. So at the moment, my screen isn't mirroring with another display. If I was connected to AirPlay, or if I wanted to mirror my laptop screen with my larger screen over here, this would appear when it was active or always. If I choose always, you'll see over there, there's my screen mirroring icon, but I only want it to appear when I'm actually mirroring my screen. So once again, it's slightly more sophisticated, slightly more control, and I don't have a plethora of these little menu bar items that are appearing on my screen all the time. So that's my dock in my menu bar. let's have a look at Widgets and Notification Center. Now you'll notice that this is slightly grayed out. That's because I've turned notifications off. I didn't want stuff to be coming through while we're doing the presentation. A quick way of turning on Do Not Disturb or turning it off is you hold the Option key on your keyboard down and you click on the date and time, and now it's active. So how do I make this appear? There's a couple of ways of making this appear. One of them is just by swiping from the right edge of my trackpad. So if my fingers are off the trackpad and I pull them in, it brings in my widgets and my notification center. Now, Widgets and Notification Center used to be in the sidebar over here, but there were two tabs, one for your widgets, it was Today View, and one for your notifications. Now they're all combined together with your notifications on the top and your widgets on the bottom. So two ways of doing it. As I said, you can swipe from the right, or you can just click on the clock and that'll bring it out. So that's quite easy to get to. If you want to respond to these, you've got, so this is my calendar. So it's telling me this is on. I can snooze this. I can work on it directly. I can close it. I can dismiss it. You can see over here my reminders. This is exactly like iPad OS or iPhone OS. If I click over here, it opens them up. I have two reminders over here. I can get rid of them. I can clear all of them. I can respond to them. I can click on here to open them up. And now this is an email that I've got. I can reply, mark it as read, or delete it without actually having to go into my mail app. It's now gone in and deleted it. So let me just quit mail over there. So those are my notifications. If you're familiar with the way they work in iPad OS, works exactly the same in macOS. Now, we've also got widgets. These widgets are identical to the ones that we get on our iPad or our iPhone. And we can edit them directly. So if I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see over there, Edit Widgets. And I now get a screen that allows me to add or remove widgets. You can see I've got the little minus sign. For those of you who have iPads, you're very familiar with these. And as well as the built-in widgets that come from Apple, like stock, screen time, and reminders, any third parties that provide you with widgets will appear here in the sidebar. So I have an application called Agenda, which is a note-taking application, but ties into your calendar. So if you're got a meeting and you want notes that are pinned to events, when that you can create notes, tie them to a meeting, and then when that day rolls around, all your notes are there ready to go. They've got 3 widgets, a small, a medium, and a large one. And if I wanted to add any of these, I just drag them in here. I can drag them to the top, I can drag them to the bottom, and just the same way you'd do it inside inside your iPad or your iPhone. Fantastical is a calendar that I use instead of Calendar. I like it a lot because it's compatible with a lot of different services. It costs money, but you know, sometimes you just you've got to suck it up. This is really nice. I can add an event to my calendar just by tapping on a widget over there. In addition, there are other third-party widgets. So I use a calculator called pCalc. If I just open it up, and this is a calculator with quite a lot of customization. But you can add it as a widget to your menu bar. So if I close that up, you see up there, there's a little widget. I can call that up anytime. I can drag it down onto the screen. It doesn't integrate with my sidebar over there, but it's using exactly the same technology as the widgets that you've got in your sidebar. Finally, as far as my widgets goes, I can have multiple instances of certain widgets. So over here, I've got Cape Town, but if I wanted to have, say, Joburg's weather or London's weather, I can take this and I can add it alongside over there. And if I click on it, I can click on my location and I can say London. There's London, click done. And now at a glance, I've got Cape Town and London. So if I need to know what the weather's like in London, I can have as many of those little widgets on there as I possibly want. Let's just get rid of that. Okay, so that's my widgets. So really, that's your main operating system changes. I haven't got really much time, so I'm going to rush through a couple of things. One of the nice changes to Photos is all of the effects and all of the things that you could do with Photos, you can now do with videos. So if I open this video, for example, I can, if I go to edit, I can adjust it. I can add filters to it, just like I could do with my photographs. I can crop them. So I can basically do all of the sort of edits that I did. So if I take this video and make it black and white.
Get past the people, get past the hitman.
James Brown. So that's really nice with Photos. Simple video editing, don't have to go to iMovie now, don't have to go to QuickTime, don't have to go to Clips, can do it straight inside my Photos. Right, this is going to be a bit of a whirlwind. Let's have a look at Maps. Maps has had some really nice additions to it. So one of the things that we've got added to it is look inside. So if I go to Chicago, here's Chicago, Illinois. You've got your flyover tour that we're used to with our maps. I can do a route from here. I've got all sorts of additional information that you might have expected to see with Google Maps and so on, full of useful information from Yelp, from TripAdvisor, and so on. But if we start to zoom in, let's go in here to Northbridge, see if I can find it. Wouldn't you know it, I can't find it now. But you have these shopping malls that you can look inside. So no, let me see if I can search for Northbridge, Chicago. I did write down where I went. Northbridge, shops at, there we go. Shops at Northbridge, indoor map or look around. So let's click on indoor map and it'll zoom me to there. There's Northbridge. And if I zoom in a little bit, you can actually see the layout, the shops. And where have you disappeared to? There we go. You can see the shops, what the layout's like, the entrances, and so on. So you literally can plan your tour without ever going there. If we go to Empire State Building, there's Empire State, and if we zoom in, click on Empire State. Again, we've got a flyover tour, but we've got look around. And look around is analogous to Google Street View, but in true Apple style, the quality of your images are, in my opinion, far superior. And when you click to move through them, your animation is so much better. There are many, many more pictures between your start and your end view. So instead of just getting this strange zoom in effect, you're like Star Trek warp effect, you literally can have a look around and see sort of intermediate pictures of where you're going. If we drive along here, you can have a look around, you can look up and see, I don't know how much we can see of the building from here, but you've got a great view and the quality of the images. There's the entrance to the Empire State Building. So you've got a very, very nice view of the places that you're going to. We can zoom out by clicking up here. And when we zoom out, we get this little binocular, which actually shows us our direction of travel. So if we're trying to do a kind of virtual tour of the place, we literally can make sure that we're heading in the right direction as we zoom through and move across our map. Okay, that's maps. Let's go to messages. Messages have been completely rewritten and is identical to the iPad version. So you can pin conversations to the top. So if you're having a conversation that you want to keep track of, you can pin it. You literally can just drag the thing up there. So if I drag that up here, I can pin this conversation. And this conversation is always going to be until I take it away. I can drag it back up, or I can just unpin the conversation, and then it moves back down into my regular conversation. Any changes that you make here are synchronized with the with your other devices. And some of the things that you could do with your iPhone and your iPad, you can now do on your Mac. So for example, if I want to send myself a message congratulating me, I can go, well done. And then if I click over here, I've got a pop-up. So I've got message effects, and I can give myself some fireworks. And if I send that message, so the effects that you've got on your iPhone, your iPad have now been brought to the Mac. You can send GIFs. So if I go to images, you can say board, and here's some messages. I really hope you don't feel this way about my presentation. And I could send this, and message is gone. We can also access and create our emojis. So here are all the stickers. And again, those of you who attended our Memoji one will recognize some of these. Here's some of the emojis that we've made. There are some of the animojis. There's our Donald Trump Taliban character. So I can add a sticker to a message, but I can also create memojis. So if I wanted to make a new memoji, I have this really nice big palette, so I can change the hairstyle, add hair to the person, change the color of the hair, etc., etc. Now, I don't have access to the Animoji that we had before, where it starts to respond to my face, because my Mac doesn't have the sort of camera that I need for Face ID. But if I generate it on my Mac and I go over to my iPad, I can now start to use it to record a virtual character that's mimicking my mouth and following my expression and so on. Finally, with messages, we can do inline message replies. So if I've got a conversation over here and I wanted to reply to, just like WhatsApp, if this is a group conversation, so this is a conversation between myself and my brother-in-law and my wife, they might be having a conversation and I want to reply to this, but the conversation's gone way off. So if I right-click on here and tap reply, just like WhatsApp, the reply will be inline and it will be attached to that original message. So we don't have this disconnect between the original message that was sent and the message and my reply to that message, which is really, really cool. Now, what makes this possible and why this was developed so quickly was that this is actually not an iOS app or an iPadOS app, but this is what's called a Catalyst app. And Apple have updated their frameworks so that iPad apps will be able to be run on your Mac. And this has been ported over. I hesitate to use the word ported over, but it's written in the Catalyst framework, which means it'll run on the Mac and it'll run on the iPad. And there's a number of apps. If I hadn't said that, you probably wouldn't have known that there was any difference between this and a normal Mac app. But in fact, will run on the iPad and run on the Mac. And there are a number of other apps that do as well. So if I open up Stocks, for example, which I never do because I don't have any, this is a Catalyst app. And this is the same app that you've got on your iPad. So I can work on this. If I know how to use this app on my iPad, I can use this app on my Mac exactly the same way. And it opens up a huge opportunity for anybody who's ever written an iPad app to port it over to the Mac. And now they have a different market. They've got a bigger market than they had before. So it's going to be quite exciting to see, because there are many, many, many more developers who develop for iPad only. There's some really nice podcast app that I use called Overcast. Doesn't have a Mac version of the app, but maybe he will in a couple of months' time. And then I can listen to my podcasts on my Mac while I'm doing work. I don't have to bring my iPad out and so on. So that's my 30-minute overview. I'm sorry I rushed through it. I hope I gave you a decent overview of some of the fundamental changes and some of the cosmetic changes. And I'm going to stop now and ask you all if you have any questions for me.
Thanks so much, Alan. Okay, yes, I'm a whole lot wiser now. Thank you. So, in other words, actually, I'm so happy with what I've got, and I don't see a big change. So, if I was to say with what I got, would I be doomed to one day having to upgrade, or can I stay with what I have? Or I mean, because it seems
what it will do eventually. No, if
Yeah.
your computer does exactly what you want it to do, then there is actually no need to change. However, it will pull you out of that upgrade continuum. And at some point, you'll hit a wall where a program that you love is being upgraded and has a feature that you've got, and you won't be able to install it. You don't want to be that guy sitting in the back room going, it's always worked that way for me. I'm on DOS 20, you know, silly computers. Why do I need a graphic user interface? Because you could end up being that guy. On the other hand, I wouldn't be a first mover like idiots like Angelo and myself, because, you know, with change comes discomfort. And I would wait maybe for 0.1 release, you know, to let them get the bugs ironed out. There's a trajectory. And if you want to stay current and you don't want to find yourself in a backwater at some point and having to make a dramatic change in 5 years' time, then it's probably good to have incremental changes. That's my opinion. But honestly, it's just my opinion. It's not right or wrong.
No, thank you, Alan.
Alan, my question was really around, is there any reason not to install, any reason to wait, or can we go ahead and install?
I found it pretty stable. Yeah, I found a couple of rough edges. So when I was getting ready for this, and I did the created the second widget for London, it wouldn't. If I clicked on London, it just froze. The widgets froze, and it wouldn't let me do a search for London. And I restarted my machine, and it worked perfectly. So I think there are some rough edges, but you know, any computer program with more than 10 lines of code has bugs in it, and hopefully they're not ones which will impact on you. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for joining us again, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a fantastic weekend.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Tim.